Irish social media is in meltdown. I asked for an 8-0 split. Jacques and Rassi have given us a 7-1 split. They've gone away from the elaborate but conservative 6-2. Your take?
I mean, that laugh pretty much does sum it up, though. I mean, wow, what a team. Mate, I like your off-the-record chat about Dwayne Vermeulen being a surprise call-up. Because what are we doing with those three little forwards on the bench? What is the plan there? That is a very interesting selection. Kobus Reinach, the one scrum off who didn't play anything but scrum off for the Boks, he's on the bench.
He's on the bench to cover wing, to cover left
Fly
wing,
off,
right wing,
center.
fly up, hooker. Who knows? But Marco van Staden, definitely there with Dion Fourie in case it doesn't work out for Dion
That's
Fourie.
exactly right. They've got a backup.
They've got a backup. Have you seen his neck, guys, just by the way? And Kwagga Smith for when the game opens up, but also potentially to cover on the win. If we have that amazing misfortune that we lose all our winners.
Let me ask you a question, though. Okay? So, you know who could also cover wing? Kanan Moody.
Look, of all the selections, I would love to have seen Kane Moody there, not Jesse Kriel. I can understand why they've gone with Jesse Kriel. They've gone with experience. They've gone with him and Dealandi, having played together for many, many a year. And you are up against a very good Irish attack and a very technical attack. So, look, they're closer to the action than what we are. They're the coaches. They're not going to make a call that they think is going to be detrimental to them. When you can leave out a Kane Moody and you can leave out a Dwayne Vermeulen, and you don't consider Andre Pollard, and you've got Lukanya and you've got Lut de Jager, and you've got Malcolm Marx injured, and you can say, I don't really need Vincent Koch. And the list goes on, and you've got a Grant Williams and a Jaden Hendrickson that are not in the loop this week. The depth of that squad is just incredible going to a World Cup when you compare it to anyone else. I keep on saying that we've got the two best packs at the tournament.
Easily.
And you know what? Why not play them? And that's exactly what they've done.
Spot on. I've got nothing against the 7-1. And maybe Dwayne took a knock in the last match. But if he hasn't, why is he at the World Cup? Do you have the most experienced guy you've got available there? Basically your on-field defense coach. And then you don't play him in the biggest pool match of the tournament for you.
It's the biggest pool match, but it's not the biggest match, okay? So they've always said they had to manage his game time. So he had a hit out against Romania.
80 minutes.
And look, he was very good when he played against the All Blacks as well. So I think he's going to definitely be the starting 8 come the quarterfinals.
But just hang on a second, because what you're saying there now is that the Boks are not picking their best team to play Ireland this week.
I don't think they're picking their best 8. But they're not picking him for a reason. His legs are a little bit old, a little bit tired. Should he go down, they've then got a dry run quarterfinal, semi-final, or final experience for Jasper Wiese.
Maybe they just want to play France.
How does it go for him? So they've said to him, go and show us if you can do it against Ireland in a pool game, in a big game, the number 1 side in the world. We have great comfort in taking you into a quarterfinal or a final if Dwayne's not available. But I would very much be surprised if Dwayne Vermeulen doesn't start the quarterfinal against either France or New Zealand.
Yes.
That's the only rationale I can put around it, because he is the best.
That's ballsy, right? I mean, if you are trying to win this game with everything you have, it's ballsy to leave out the experience of Dwayne and Willie.
It is, but what it's shown, the second tier that's come through in the last 2 years, it's shown a Damian Willemse and it's shown a Jasper Wiese incredible trust.
100%.
And
like
that's
that.
what you want to see at a World Cup, and you want to see it in these kind of games.
Yeah.
The fact that they went out against Romania with 4 scrum-offs and 1 hooker and said to them, play, and they won 76-0. As we spoke about earlier in the week, what was so impressive was they didn't concede a point, and they were scrambling on defense. On the odd occasions, Romania put together 2 phases to make sure they didn't concede anything, okay? In terms of a try. We know Romania missed that penalty first up. Ireland is 1 in the world. They've won 15 in a row. They need 19 in a row to become the greatest statistical team in the history of rugby. All Blacks England share that on 18 successive wins. The Boks had 17. Carl du Plessis won, and Nick Mallard got the 16 after that, 97, 98. What's incredible for me is that the Boks have never played Ireland at a World Cup, and they've never played them on neutral ground. And they've only played them once in the last 6 years since Rassi and Jacques took over. And that was last year, 1916, at the Aviva Stadium, in an excellent game. Cheslin Colby got a yellow card on the 18th minute. it's talked about defense, us being the best defensive team in the world against the best attacking team in the world. But an interesting statistic from that game was in the first 27 minutes, Ireland made 78 tackles and the Boks made 36. And all the attack went to the Boks with Damien Willemse at fly-off. Now we've got Marnie Lebok at fly-off. So I'm not going to kind of stereotype the Boks as a defensive team and Ireland as an attack team. I think they're both excellent rugby teams.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think if anything, you're going to see a repeat of that because the Boks have shown an appetite for ramming the ball down your throat and leveraging their physicality. And the way that they've been doing that is not kicking goals and putting the ball out in touch for a line-out drive. So Ireland are going to have to tackle, just like New Zealand had to tackle the last time they played.
Look, New Zealand were feeble. Ireland aren't going to be feeble. They're a well-drilled side. They're a very good side. They've got great leadership, great experience, and they've built the side to come to this point. But we also saw Leinster, great side. The last 2 years, they've fallen at the last hurdle. Potentially overconfident, kind of sticking to a stereotypical game plan. Everyone says you know what you get with the Springboks. Stereotype, physicality, boring. Absolute nonsense. I think there's so much more to the Springboks. I know what you get with Ireland. They play a very structured game, very structured on attack, and kind of solid on defense. But there's going to be no surprises from Ireland. If anyone's going to surprise on Saturday night in terms of the way they play, it's going to be the Boks.
Yeah.
A bit like we saw in the World Cup final when England said the Boks can come with one thing and one thing only. When we destroyed their pack, 6 penalties conceded in the first 20 minutes, our backs looked like they could play.
Yeah, 100%. And nobody's at the World Cup to score style points. Well, nobody that's a contender at least. And at the end of the day, when you cross the line and you dot the ball down, you don't get extra points because you danced before you did that. So if you drive it over with 12 forwards and you score, it's the same 5 points as if you step 7 players and score under the sticks. So,
look, I would have loved, like we said just before we started the show, I would love them to pull Reinach an hour before kickoff and put another forward there and actually have two solid packs and Ches and Colby can cover 9.
Yes.
Imagine having Colby at 9 and Faf at 10 and winning that game.
Why not, mate?
And Dion Fourie at hooker.
At the end of the day, you and I could be in the lineup at the moment. It's so physical, mate. How are you going to stop that?
Dion Fourie at hooker to throw and Marco van Staden to scrum. I mean, that would take Ireland's 4 years and just say to them, what now, boys?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what's going to happen on Saturday. That's my suspicion. What does it look like? Second half, you've got Dion Fourie potentially throwing into the line-out, into a line-out that's short because you've got Marco van Staden and Kwagga as lifters. Or who knows, maybe they're jumping at the front. Who knows? Who knows, mate?
But at that stage, is there going to be anything left to jump against?
That's a great question.
Because we saw in Marseille how quickly those French guys bailed, eh?
Yes.
Those forwards.
And I think that is exactly what I suspect. After they lost in Ireland last year, you and I had a conversation, I wrote about it, we spoke about it, that the Boks were mucking about. Like they could easily have won that game. If they wanted to win that game last year, they could have taken it. It won't be a popular opinion in Ireland, but that's exactly what happened. They messed them around a little bit, probably played a bit too much rugby. And I came out of that game feeling like that was a game that they, in a way, threw away because they could have taken it. And maybe that was the point. They're only going to play them once before this match. And you don't want to blow Ireland away in Dublin and create that expectation. I think that's happening this week.
Do you think that was the best Ireland could play? Andy Farrell said afterwards, what a great test match. They'd come off a historic series win in New Zealand. They'd lost the first test 42-19 when Fozzie wasn't coaching. He was sick that week. They came back, won the last 2, went back home, entertained then the world champions. They were number 1 in the world, and they won 1916 in a brutal test match. And they said Ireland have certainly arrived. And the next week they beat Fiji 35-17 with their second team and then beat Australia 13-10. Last minute of the game, Australia opted not to go for goal, went for the corner and it was a skew line out and Ireland won 13-10. So those were 2 games. Australia, coached by Dave Rennie at that time, which had a lot more mongrel than Eddie's side, and South Africa that could have gone against Ireland. The close nature of the victory means when you win, you don't always look at the potential flaws in your side. When you lose, you start kind of analysing them a lot more.
Yeah.
But if we go back to that game and we look at the flow, we were out of the blocks, a lot of possession. It was 6-all at halftime, but we dominated kind of possession, if not field position. They made a lot of tackles. Then Van der Vlier scored in the 43rd minute, and Mac Hansen scored somewhat against the runner play in the 49th minute, 16-6. But at no stage did Ireland at 16-6 look like they were going to run away with it. The Boks came back to 16-11, missed the conversion. 70th minute, Sexton gets a penalty, 19-11. Orense scores in the 76th minute, 19-16. We missed the conversion again, which makes it a big difference when you kick off with 1 point or 3 points and the end whistle goes. So the flow of the game very much suited a positive Bok outcome. And 11 of those starting 15 from the Boks are starting on Saturday night. The big difference for me, it's Damon's at fullback and he's not at fly-off, and Mani Lebok is there at fly-off. The pack is pretty much the same, and then you got 17 of the 23 involved in the game were there. It's also going to be very similar numbers when it looks at the Ireland side. So I thought that was a very, very good test match, Caribbean test match. But at the time, I think we both said it was as if the Boks not were holding something back, but it's easier to go into this game and say we lost the last time. They are one in the world. The expectation should be on them to win.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with your entire synopsis there. How you remember all those facts, I don't know. Yes, so I think we're on the same page because whatever the Boks have been building to is going to get laid out this week. And so these sort of surprise selections just sort of up the ante, just adds to the mystique about what's coming.
Okay, the beautiful thing about a game like this is there's no keeping up powder dry here.
No.
This is, let's see what both teams have got. Both teams want to get a result, and they want to kind of determine their own future by ending top of the table.
Or do they, mate?
The pressure, though, is more on Ireland than it is on us because we only have to play Tonga, and with the greatest respect to Tonga, they don't have a pack. And they're going to get pumped by the Boks, regardless of who we play.
Yes.
Scotland still have to play Ireland, and that could be a very, very difficult game.
In that one, yeah.
Because Scotland is a very good side. And there's so much history between those two teams. So when you look at it, this one's starting to remind me a bit of 2007. New Zealand beat Portugal by 100 points, beat Italy by 70-odd points, rolled over some other team, and then got to Cardiff, dominated a game against France. Look, Wayne Barnes didn't blow a penalty for 44 minutes when France made 200 tackles and 199 of them were at the just around the ruck at the breakdown. So, but 2018, and they complained about where they were underdone was the physicality and actually being tackled for the first time. They'd gone 3 weeks of being on a holiday. Now,
cruising.
Ireland have scored 20 tries in their two games, 83-8 against Romania, 59-16 against Tonga. They've looked magnificent, but they've had to do nothing in both those games. The best thing that could have happened for us was that start up against Scotland. That was a tough game to start the World Cup with. And this team is coming out of that game. Only 2 of the starting 15 from Romania are starting on Saturday. I would venture to say that we've had the better build-up with New Zealand, with Scotland, than Ireland have had.
I mean, I agree on all those points. The bottom line is with these two teams, that the build-up, all of that stuff, all relevant, but the issue here is when you get in a street fight, your jab pretty much means nothing. That's for boxing. And Ireland are going to get into a street fight on the weekend. And all of the peripheral stuff and their form and their technique and all their clever attack and all that stuff, it's valuable and it's important. But if they cannot cope with the physicality of the Boks, then a lot of that just falls away. And I don't believe that Ireland can cope with the physicality of the Boks. And neither does Rassie. Because if he did, he wouldn't pick 3 mini forwards on the bench. He would load up with the biggest guns he has. And they haven't done that. And we are going into a match against Ireland, the number 1 ranked team in the world, who we've played once and lost once under Rassie. I think we've won 4 of the last 11 matches against Ireland. We're going into this match with 1 back on the bench, a scrum half who's only played scrum half, and then a mini fetcher, and a mini fetcher who's playing hooker. So we can't say that the Boks have got a hell of a lot of respect for this Irish team. I'm sure there's technical reasons for those picks, but we feel like we are going to physically mangle these guys this weekend. It's clear.
If you look at the Irish setup and you look at their pack, and I'm not talking about their starting pack. They've got some wonderful players in that starting pack. I'm talking about the reserve strength. Now, where the innovation has come in this game is, wow. When we played 6-2, France Dane was there.
Yeah.
So he was part of that dimension that you brought onto the field when you brought them all on at once. Here, they're effectively looking to take off primarily 1 pack and put on another pack.
Yeah.
And Ireland doesn't have the numbers And those who have to make up those numbers don't have the quality of that reserve bench. Jean Klein and Ergis Snyman were outstanding in the URC final.
The
4
Munster
months in Cape
Monsters,
Town.
yeah.
The Munster Monsters. I rate them as the best lock pair in Irish rugby.
Yeah.
They're on the bench to play against Ireland.
Exactly, mate. Exactly.
So how does Ireland play? I mean, I've been looking at a lot of the clips. Bernard Jackman, who the former Irish international and turned pundit, gives great insights, and he really is a much kind of ready stuff. Watch his clips and all that.
Yeah.
And he's analysed that. The only thing they've got to analyse is that 1916 win. And look, all the Irish critics are like, if the Irish don't physically arrive, the game's over. Okay,
correct.
It's going to be won and lost. It's a traditional old battle, a ding-dong battle. But he's done some nice clips on how Ireland needed to attack and negate the Boks defensive line-up pressure. The as they call it, the blitz rush defense that comes from outside in. How the pass has to beat that, or the cross kick has to beat that. I do think that the Boks defense has evolved since that Dublin game of a year ago. And there's a lot more that we haven't seen, and that people underestimate. It's not just kamikaze defense. There's a lot of science behind the way they defend. How will you play the Boks if you're Ireland?
If I'm Ireland, the last thing I'm going to do is run at the Boks. If I'm Ireland, I'm going to look at all the footage of the Boks struggling with high kicks, and I'm going to float them all day. I'm going to rush that receiver. I'm going to try and create chaos around that breakdown. I would try and box the Boks in some regard. Obviously, you can't match them the whole way around the field, but I would try and turn the tactical table on the Boks and say, okay, you guys play your way out. You guys exit. And the only way to beat that Bok defense is on the break when they've got to scramble. If you run at a structured Bok attack, you may as well just pull the pin out of the hand grenade and stick it down the front of your trousers. It's going to be a long day. So Ireland, as much as they've got this vaunted attack and they get away with it against other teams, you cannot play like that against the Boks. You'll get destroyed. They've got to back their kicking game. The Conor Murray Sexton show's got to come to life, and somehow Tyke Furlong and those boys have got to hunker down and at least hold their own up front.
But to back a kicking game, you've got to at least have some form of parity up front.
Yes.
Is this Irish pack over 80 minutes, given the context that they'll be playing 2 packs, are they good enough to do that? Because that's something they've never experienced.
Yeah, I don't think they are, but I think that if they try and play keep ball and go coast to coast with clever stuff and build continuity like that, they're going to need help from the ref for that to work, because the Boks are just going to tee up and take them down. Double hits, dominant tackles. They're going to be moonwalking the whole game. So I don't see how that could work either.
And where the Boks have been successful on occasion against a side like the All Blacks is when they've played that coast-to-coast ball in hand game, played it behind the gain line, and we've just kind of, South Africans love tackling. They love tackling more than they love running with the ball. And that gets them into the game.
Yeah.
The more contact there is early on for our guys, the greater confidence they play with.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the UK, they only introduce tackling, I think, when you're under 12. In South Africa, we only introduce a ball when you're under 12.
Some places when you're under 18,
Exactly.
mate. But if you're coaching, if you're Andy Farrell or you're part of that tactical squad, what are the areas that you look at that you say there's got to be an Achilles heel to this Boks side? Although if there wasn't, they would be number 1 in the world. They'd be unbeaten.
Yeah.
What is it?
I think the only way, aside from the tactical thing that you can look at, is you could say in the second half, look, they're all going to have a hooker who's not comfortable at the line-out. There's an opportunity for us to disrupt them there. If you can disrupt them at the line-out, you combine that with a goal kicker who can be flaky at times, and you could potentially take control of the scoreboard in the second half. I would look at those things, but a lot of that is out of your control.
If you look at the Boks and the way they play, and some of the stuff I've read from the many analysts in Ireland, and it really is, it's some of the nicest and most informative rugby analysis that I've read. I mean, there's some bright people over there in terms of their traditional media, their social media.
Yeah.
They don't get as kind of as personal as some of the blokes in New Zealand do, or South Africa, but I'm talking about their critics and that, not their social media. That's on par with anything else. Social media meltdown, kick them out of the World Cup.
Rabbit.
How can they play 7-1? But their whole thing is that this Bok team can only bring physicality.
What more do you need?
No, but it's...
The Bok team is way more than just physicality.
I said this earlier, that if you saw just the way they played against Romania, and look, Romania were easy beats, but everyone raved about Ireland beating them 83-8. Let's then rave about South Africa beating them 76-0. If you go back to the Rugby Championship, that opening game against Australia was as impressive as France put against them, or New Zealand put against them in Melbourne.
Yeah.
You go to that Buenos Aires test. There were times where the Boks played with great width and kind of showed that they've got the capacity with ball in hand. When you've got a Cheslin Colby, a Kurtley Arendse, a Damian Willemse, as your back three, you can play. You got a Lebok, you can play. And this is why I go back to, again, to me, the most important Bok back is that guy that we both love that's wearing 12, Damien Delandy. He has a Sonny Ball Williams presence for us, and he has for a long time.
Correct.
And where it was showing up the most, and this goes back to what you said earlier, the game where the Boks looked the most vulnerable I'm talking in a big tournament context, was the semi-final against Wales in Japan, where Gatlin's approach was exactly what you said. If you're going to beat us, you've got to provide one moment of magic, because we're not going to run at you. We're going to kick the ball back at you, and you're not going to run at us because you don't back your attack. And you're going to kick it back to us, and it's going to be this arm wrestle, and it's going to be the most turgid game for anyone to watch.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a wonderful tactical game of chess.
Yeah.
For a real rugby connoisseur. I thought that was one of the more intense games.
Fabulous.
And then what happened? Damien Delandy. Damien Delandy, with that one moment of magic, broke the tackles, scored. Yes, Pollard got on the scoreboard with that great kick to win it at the end. But that's why Delandy is there. And he's there to calm Manie Lebok. And he's there because his familiarity with Jesse Kriel. And I think people don't give him that due. I'm not dismissing that Andre the Giant hasn't played well for Harlequins and when he's had the opportunity. But right now, I don't think you can compare the two in terms of quality and in terms of what they bring to the side. You've been agreeing with me a lot today. I don't like it.
I do agree with you, mate. You're saying a lot of the things that I think. So
I saw your notes.
I do. I mean, look, if Damien Delandy retired from rugby in the next 15 minutes and Andre Esterhuizen stepped in, it would be a loss, but we'd be getting a guy who can do the job and do it well. I mean, Andre Esterhuizen is a great rugby player.
But, those trolls got to you. What happened in 2 weeks?
but Damien Delandy is, for me, is one of the elites, and as is always the case with Bok 12s, underappreciated, and I think he adds massive value there. I do think Andre Esterhuizen is probably the form center at the moment, but I think that Damien is the guy with the higher ceiling, and I think he's the guy who offers the most value to how the Boks play. And then getting back to what you're saying about people accusing the Boks of only being physical. If the Boks were just a physical team, everybody would kick long at them and challenge them to do something about it. You don't do that because those kids you spoke about at the back will slice and dice you and score tries. And it's not that the Boks can only be physical, it's that the Boks can be physical. And other teams envy that because they don't have that platform where they can physically dominate every opponent every time they play.
Well, it's very similar to, you go back to in his prime, not when he was a impersonator of his glory days, Mike Tyson, in his first 5 years as the world champion, and his common theme was, everyone has a plan on how to beat me, and then I hit them. Now, everyone has a plan on how to beat the Boks.
Until they get punched in the face.
Until they get tackled. Until that kind of green machine starts rolling, 8 of them, and then another 7 come on. I mean, that Twickenham image will be one that lives with me forever. When the camera panned to Bongi and the boys, 7 of them warming up at the same time. I mean, you took one look at those New Zealand forwards, and I'm like, no, mate. It's like playing the Stormers and then playing the Sharks in the second half.
Spot on. That's exactly right.
And then thinking, I may be playing the Bulls in the last 15 minutes as well. We'll leave the Lions out of this because they really don't offer much. But going back to my earlier question to you, put on an Irish hat.
Yes.
If you can. Be the leprechaun for me.
Yes.
Think it's St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be a joyous occasion. How do you talk about how you fashioned the win against the Boks? Give us some technical insights. You've got your level 3 coaching. You're not just a pretty boy and an editor. You don't just have the raw. Yeah. Tell me how Ireland goes out and beats this Bok team.
So I've explained what I would do. I think Ireland are going to back their attack when they're in the right parts of the field. I think Sexton and Murray will kick. But I think Ireland are going to count on their systems to try and break that Bok defense down. And they're going to try and catch Jesse tackling in and make those moments count. And against the Boks, you're not going to have many of those moments. So when they come, Ireland are going to have to convert them. But like I said, I don't think that's the route. I don't think that's the shortest route to victory for Ireland. And a lot of it depends on the quality of those kicks from Sexton and Murray to put them in the right parts of the field. And then a major part of this, and maybe this is how the Boks could get in trouble, mate. There's an Irish ref. It's Benno Skiff this week. I don't know how you beat Ireland with an Irish ref.
Yeah, with an Irish pub as well.
Exactly. No, so look, Ben O'Keefe, obviously Kiwi. A lot of it's going to come down to that, and that's my concern with picking those three little guys on the bench for the Boks. Is clearly the objective there is to slow the ball down. We've got three fetchers. You're going to play coast to coast, which means we don't have to wait for our opportunity to ball hawk. We've got three guys spread across the width of the field. If you go wide and you don't protect that breakdown, we got a guy who can get in there early. But you are rolling the dice there on that guy's interpretation of what O'Keefe thinks about the breakdown and when it's a ruck and when it's not a ruck and who's offside.
Look, let's be honest. I thought Ben O'Keefe was outstanding in the Lions series. There was so much heat on him. I think I put heat on him every day, 24 hours a day, before that second test. But and look, I think he's a very good referee. I know Eddie Jones doesn't think so. He's had a pop at him on a few occasions.
Yeah.
Discipline's going to be key to us, and God, it's like, don't chase that high ball if you think it's a 50-50 chance of your head connecting something or your boot going somewhere. I think it's got to be disciplined. We can't afford yellow cards. No team really can.
Mate, when you pick three guys on the bench who are 5'7", you can't really get high tackles, can you?
You'll be surprised, mate. Have you seen what goes on at that ruck?
The jumping shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that the key with those guys as well, and we go back to this Ireland side reminds me of some of the very good New Zealand sides in the way they play.
Yes.
Especially with their attack.
Spot on. That's what they've been aiming for, right?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Farrell kind of improved on what Joe Smith had.
Yes.
But then you look at the one thing that we've never really invested in South Africa, and it's cost us, but we've kind of finally got there, is the value of a fetcher, the value of someone who can slow that ball down, we can realign our defense. And when you've got a Dion Fourie and a Marco van Staden potentially on in that second half, that really does give us control of that breakdown, and you've still got the physicality around them. We also speak about Jesse's approach, and he's got serious gas, but he can be beaten by a pass. Scotland did beat him by a pass, but then what we've got now, what we didn't have, you can't compare the pace of Manie Lebok to 100 Potter to Alton Yankees. He turned immediately and he chased and he got Darcy Graham. Darcy Graham thought he was through. He didn't even know there was a guy coming from the back.
Yeah.
So the way we scrambled in that Scotland game should have given us so much confidence, because it's saying to that first line of rush defense, you can miss him.
Yeah.
We'll get him.
Yeah. But beyond just Manie Lebok, those three whippets on the bench also bring athleticism to that pack. They also bring a speed element, an explosive ability to cross cover and assist in the scramble. There's definitely that. Dwayne and Flo, amazing smash mouth flankers, but probably not the quickest guys.
But that's what I also like about Kwagga Smith's inclusion, because he does bring pace.
He brings speed in kick chase, in scramble, everything.
And he brings a very unstructured approach in the last 15, 20 minutes of the game. And we saw that again at Twickenham against the All Blacks. He's willing to take the quick tap and he's willing to go. And he's got that incredible sevens background as well. So in the context of what they're trying to do on a 7-1, I really do see his value over a more traditional loose forward who's physical, but is a little bit slower off the mark.
Yes.
If you look at this game in totality, who wins?
The Springboks. The Springboks will win.
What's that, Ricky? Give me the raw.
The Springboks are the team to back this week, the world champions. They are going to take this game by 8 points. They will be in control from the start to the finish. The set piece, the breakdown, the tackle point, even the anthems. They will control everything, and they will win.
So you got the Boks to win by 8.
Yeah.
Comfortably.
Yeah.
All right, I've got the Boks to win by 11 points.
Woo!
Woo-hoo! Double digits, baby. Double digits, baby. And it's going to be a very good game for 60 minutes. And I think the Boks will be in control because of that power pack.
Yeah.
And they will get over the line, and the heat will be on Ireland to beat Scotland. And it'll be the first time Ireland's taken a knock in the best part of a year and a half. That 15-match unbeaten run will go. There will be doubts. There will be a few injuries. And who knows what Scotland could do to them. So everything to play for Ireland. The Boks, they've got a bit of leeway should it go wrong. They've got Tonga and they've got the playoffs. This one, the pressure is on Ireland to show the world they're good enough, not only just to get out of their pool, but to go beyond the quarterfinals. Because history tells us that Ireland have never gone beyond a quarterfinal in their World Cup experience. With the Boks, we've got to 3 finals and we've won all 3. Talking of finalists, before we wrap it up, the only other game for me that has significance
Argentinissimo.
is Chile against England. No, is Eddie Moans up against...
Eddie!
It's Warren Gatland on his second term with Wales
mate.
against Eddie Jones. But... Bru.
Listen, China.
Kazi Buri,
No,
China.
China, listen.
Eddie Jones has gambled big with kids.
Yes.
And Warren Gatland has gambled with some kids, but brought a lot of oldies back. I say that Eddie Jones' World Cup ends on Saturday. Is it Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
I think he gets an extra day. Sunday night, 9 o'clock. He's still got hope. By midnight South African time, Eddie Jones and the Wallabies are out of the World Cup. Warren Gatland is eyeing going through top of the table. Fiji to come second. And there's an inquest into Eddie for leaving the big guns out, the oldies, and having this disgraceful campaign. I don't see how this Australian team can beat a Welsh team that's going to play with a lot of discipline, structure, and has Dan Bigger at 10.
Oh, you're going to love Dan Bigger after that rant.
I got to love him, eh? Giving Georgie North a good old psychology lesson.
Yeah.
Eh?
No, that was fantastic. I think this is going to be an absolute thriller. And I think it goes to extra time, mate, where Flash Gordon kicks a drop goal for the win.
Flash Gordon won't even be on the field in 80 minutes, mate. I can tell you that
Yeah,
much.
he'll be yanked.
They got to protect him.
Yeah.
Don't play him.
Yeah.
I think Wales win this quite comfortably. They win it by 12 points.
Ooh,
Australia,
maybe.
we are giving Australia, we're giving them points based on the colour of the
History.
jersey and history.
Yeah.
And while I don't particularly rate this Welsh side, there's enough in this Welsh side to get past this very, very vulnerable and exposed Australian side. Eddie Jones is 1 from 7, and that 1 is against Georgia. And watching the Australian analysts, they said what concerned them about the Georgia test was that Georgia scored 2 tries in the 35-15.
Yes.
And if you look at an Ireland or you look at a Springbok or a France kind of performance, those guys fight to defend their goal line. That was typical young, youthful, super rugby, super Pacific rugby. Australia saying, we'll get 35, you get 15, it's a great 20-point win.
Yeah.
Against the big dogs, it won't work. I don't say Wales is a big dog, but they've got enough hardened veterans.
That makes sense what you're saying.
And, geez, you've agreed with me
Makes
today
sense,
on
mate.
everything.
You're wrong, but it makes sense.
So you say Australia to win.
Wallabies, mate. Wallabies for the win.
So you got Australia to win.
It's going to be a shootout. High-scoring shootout.
I don't think it's going to be high scoring at all, mate.
Joe Roth dusts off the old cleats, jogs on in the second half.
So you've got who? Australia. You've actually got Australia to win.
I've got Australia to beat Wales.
By how many points?
It's going to be close. Like I said, that drop goal. So let's call it 5 points.
5 points.
Let's call it 5
Okay.
points. Let's round it off.
All right. This guy called La Rochelle back to back. I keep
Oh,
on
no.
saying it.
There we go.
To win what was then the Heineken Cup. It's now going to be the Investec Cup, the biggest title in Europe. So when he says a team can win, I don't dismiss it out of hand. But on this occasion,
I will.
I will dismiss it out of hand. Australia do not win, and neither do Ireland.